Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad you're here this morning. Got a great show lined up. Got some good news about some fish biting all of a sudden. But first, let's do our weather. Brought to us by Haney Technical Center at the corner of Baldwin and Highway 77. Another one of these Chamber of Commerce days. We're looking at a high of 74, a low 63. But again, the fascinating news is the water temperature is going up to the highest it's been all year. It's bounced from 63 to 65. So that's a huge jump right there. And the next jump, we're going to really be talking about the spring migration kicking off, but it's not yet. It hasn't started yet, although we do have one species that's coming in I'll tell you about shortly. Let's take a look at our river readings brought to us by Washington's Landing Marina and Dry Storage, the Choctawhatchee River. Let's do the Apalachicola River first. It's right at 15 foot, got a slow drop to it. The Choctawhatchee at Carabelle is 10.1 and got a slow drop to it. Both rivers are going to be looking good next couple of days. Tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery. Today is Wednesday, March the 9th. And we're going into some neap tides. We're not getting a lot of tidal flow, but we're going to have some strong winds. But the tide itself, we're looking on your screen there, we're looking at a low tide at, let's see, we're looking at a low tide at 6:54. So anyway, you can see the chart there. You know, we always look ahead for the weekend. This weekend, just a bunch of neap tides, but the next weekend is going to be strong. You know, almost alternates every other weekend. Last weekend we had some good strong tides. The marine forecast is small craft warning south-southeast at 15 to 25. So be careful when you get out there. Quickly though, let me tell you about the pompano. Sunday night I started getting some pictures, and I was a little hesitant when I saw them because I was just, in fact, I didn't copy them to show them to you, but I was a little hesitant because it's just too early for the pompano run. And I talked to Scott Lindsay, he heard the same thing. He said, they're catching pompano on the beach, and I called somebody else, and yeah, they're catching them. So we've had an initial run of pompano. Now keep this, I don't think this is the spring run. I think this is just some of these pompanos been hanging around, all of a sudden they just got active when that water temperature jumped up. The spring run's a little early, but they, Sunday afternoon and Monday, and yesterday caught some pompano here along the beaches and the pier. Okay, let's go ahead and take our break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Glad you're with us this morning. I had a quick email about the fish app that I showed last week. The name of that again is called a Fish Rules app, R-U-L-E-S, Fish Rules app. Okay, it's sort of a blue cover. Got two quick emails I want to read you, and then we're going to move on. But this is from Mike Heppenstall. Mike was former principal there at Haney, and he works down at Beacon Education. He said, "Afternoon, Winston. I'm working with staff and volunteers at MKL to carry some of the students fishing. Last year we went to the Panama City Marina, and the winds and tide made for a difficult day of fishing. We've all been there. We caught a couple of squirrel fish, and that was about it. I thought if I could find a pond with catfish, brim, etc., and the owner would not mind the students catching the fish and keeping them for a class fish fry the next day. The experience for the students would be priceless. Thank you for letting me pick your brain, Michael Heppenstall." So if you know someone that owns a pond or something that wouldn't mind some kids from MKL coming out and have accessibility to that, that's a great thing to do. So get in touch with me and I'll touch base with Mike. You can email me or call me, okay? The second email along the same way. People asking for help from fellow outdoorsmen like us. Hey, Winston, the Friends of Camp Helen got a request from a Sarah Hamilton with wish of a lifetime, wanting to fulfill a 94-year-old veteran's wish to go freshwater fishing. It goes on to say he could not get in a boat. Okay, so would you be interested in finding someone for us? It might be a good project for one of the students. So this is from Ted Turnbow. Ted's number is 230-8906. So this is two great opportunities working at each end of the spectrum of our life cycle. The young folks out there that want to go fishing, and some 94-year-old that want to go fishing. So you know what a blessing you can be to someone if you help them out like that. So if you have opportunity to do that, let me know or call them, and we'll get it worked out. So we're doing a short segment here, but we're going to take a break. We have a special guest here in the studio. You're going to be really interested to see what he has to share with us. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back and welcome to our guest this morning, James Middleton.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to have you. And you had a little bit of a drive this morning.
Yeah, I did.
Well, where are you coming from?
Miramar Beach.
He drove all the way from Miramar Beach and was here just time I drove up. So this is good. Special guest today. We're going to talk about some gun estate planning, and it's really Rick Corley got me hooked up with you. And so tell us a little bit. First of all, we always like to tell our guests, tell us a little bit of background. You're one of our Panhandle boys.
Yeah, I am. I was born in Valparaiso, Florida, and grew up fishing, hunting like most everybody else around here.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my first job at 10 years old was at Hudson Marina, fuel dock, taking batteries out, jumping off boats, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of grow up going to school. My parents are Jim and Frankie Middleton, retired school teachers from Choctaw.
They taught at your high school.
Sure did. Well, actually starting in the, in the 50s, it was there in Shalimar.
Yeah.
It was Meigs in 1966. They built the new school on the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
So they retired in '88. Dad's passed away now. My mom's 84. Hey, Mom. That's right. And have a twin sister, Donna.
Okay.
My older sister, Deborah West. She has Simply Elegant there on the racetrack. You'll buy a wedding dress.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my mom's still there on the old homestead there on the racetrack road. Grew up on Don's Bayou.
Okay.
Fishing. Got a captain's license. Then I worked in marine construction. Thompson Bridge building business, Mike Thompson, Skanska, 331 Bridge.
Okay.
Worked there. Currently supporting the Navy EOD school over at underwater building at Weekly Bayou Eglin Air Force Base.
Okay.
And that's how I met Rick Corley indirectly. We knew some of the same people, being in the same industry.
Marine industry, yeah.
Right. My son, Jesse James Middleton, was introducing the gun trust concept over to these folks over here. They had some questions, comments, and concerns. And as Jesse says, well, this stuff is so easy, I'll just let my dad explain it.
That's a compliment.
Yeah. So that's how we met. He's really thinks a lot of you and your show.
Well, he does.
And he said, James, won't you come by one morning, check in with Winston, and won't you just talk about guns, firearms legislation?
And we talked on the phone and everything, and a couple times, and I said, well, just come on the show and explain it to people, because I think it's such a simple concept. It's been overcomplicated.
Yeah,
when
it
you
sure
get
has.
government involved and stuff, I think we understand what happens on that. So basically, we're all outdoorsmen, and a lot of folks watch the show are outdoorsmen, although some folks are just getting ready to go to work. I know my principal, Sandra Harrison, she's getting ready to go to work, and she's just walking in and out of the room, and when I get to school, she'll mention something was on the show, so I know she's watching. So a lot of folks like that. So this is the gun ownership in America. It's a real, to me, it's always been second nature. And now with all the political environment the way it is, and an attack on the Second Amendment, it's become more sort of a frontline kind of situation.
Well, it really is. A lot of people ask me all the time and go, well, what are you? And I say, well, let me tell you what I'm not. I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. But what I am is a legal document preparer. I use something called Wealth Docs software with Hot Docs assembly software. And it's a simple process, really. The documents are created, they're legal, they're state and county specific, which means the document's inducible, which means someone has to take it. I guess we first found out about legal documents perhaps in school, FERPA, the Privacy Act. Your son or daughter turns 18 years old, I like to know what her grade is, I like to know what her report card is, I like to make a doctor's appointment. And then you realize the adult child hasn't signed the FERPA release form, what turned into HIPAA. So they didn't sign the HIPAA form, so now you don't have access to that child's information. So the child turns 18 now as an adult, so you need a few legal documents in order to make sure you have access to that information that they want you to have access about. And then you run into other documents, perhaps a title to a car, or you perhaps you need a power of attorney to do something for someone else. So as you grow up, you kind of know, I need a few documents. Well, if your family gets sick, or if you have an illness, or perhaps there's probate in the family through grandparents or something, then you realize you need a lot of information. And so what I decided to do was, if the state of Florida said you need to be licensed to discuss, annuities or insurance, well, I am licensed to do that. So anything that I speak about today, I am licensed to speak about it.
You're all legal. Okay.
Well, that's why we'll provide
right.
you the background information.
You're right about documents. You know, it used to be just a little sign, a little simple thing, but now everything you do, you got to have documentation and all on everything.
Well, it's emotion.
Yeah.
Shrivo down in South Florida, that was very emotional for people. People remember that. They don't know what it was, but they remember something happened. Well, she was married. Her husband wanted to make a decision for her.
Yeah.
She was the daughter, you know, and the mother wanted to make decisions for her. And so they didn't have the documents that they needed, so they ended up in a battle.
Big court battle. Yeah.
And as a result of that, now you have something called a HIPAA waiver, and now you have something called a healthcare surrogate, and now you almost need a power of attorney to make healthcare decisions. And so it just kind of grows, you know. It's ruled on emotions. Getting back to the gun stuff, now in 1934, National Firearms Act of 1934. That's what started our gun legislation.
That's the foundation of that 1934 ruling. Of our gun
And think about the environment. You had Al Capone, John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, and they were running around shooting people with full automatic machine guns. And that's emotional. You know, we don't need to have that.
Right.
So I think everybody was pretty much on board. Well, we need some type of gun act. So, you know, everybody doesn't need to own a full automatic machine gun.
Yeah.
Well, they got in a room and they said, well, if we're going to talk about machine guns, why don't we put concealment guns? So if it's a belt buckle gun or if it's a knife and an umbrella. So they get in a room and the original concept's good. You know, nobody needs a machine gun probably, right?
Right.
But what they don't realize is in this legislation and this gun amendments, they add things. You know, they take a simple form which could have been written up on one page and then ends up 248 pages long. And so that's what we're stuck with is the end language. So 1968 rolls around, Martin Luther King gets shot, John Kennedy, our president's killed. You know, talking about emotion, you know, to this day, because now we're talking about something happened during our lifetime.
Right.
You know, and we can relate to that. And you know, American Rifleman had an ad in the back of their magazine where you could buy a gun. And that's where that gun came from. And so again, they take those emotions and then they start adding to gun legislation. Well, they say, well, maybe it doesn't need to be legal for everybody to buy a gun out of a back of magazine. Well, the NRA was instrumental in that. As a matter of fact, the president of the NRA at that time said, you know, we'll go along with that.
Okay.
And the NRA goes along with background checks. So people think automatically the NRA is against rules or regulations or amendments, and they're not. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
And that's where we get the government involved, which could be done on one piece of paper, grows. Because now they take that emotion, they say, well, not only do we need to control this, we need to control that. And then we need to control this. And that's how things get out of hand. So you got 1934, you have 1968, which I refer to as common sense. You know, those are common sense acts that, you know, probably made sense at the time, make sense today.
Yeah.
Well, now you have politicians that are lobbying against guns. And they really, now 2003 rolls around. Now 2003, everything's an assault rifle or an assault weapon. And by definition, you know, it's an overall length or it's not an overall length. Or it's a capacity of a magazine. They determine whether my gun's an assault weapon or not. And I think that's when we really see in 2003, 2004 that they're really not concerned about going after the criminal. You know what I mean? We talk about punishing people that have an event with a firearm, and it seems they lose focus on that. You know, they lose focus. They have these mandatory gun laws, but then all of a sudden now they want to control the guns that's going to affect the criminal. Well, you and I are law-abiding citizens. We're going to go by the rules and we're going to go by the laws, but the criminal's not.
That's right. we know that. Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah. And what brings us here today is 2015.
Okay. Those are important days. You go back 34, 68, and 03, and then 2015, and all these is sort of culminated, sort of just getting stronger and stronger against people like us.
Well, you realize they're talking about us eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what, you know, that's the line we got to draw and all. Okay, we're gonna take a break here. We'll come back and see some options we have as outdoorsmen with our guns and all. Okay, we'll take a break and be right back. Okay, sitting here with James, and we were talking about a lot of things and all, and we got plenty of time, but we wanted to cover the history and background of what brought us to this point in time in our country, as far as, you know, the attack on folks like us that just own guns to hunt with and for self-protection. So let's pick it up from there and move on. Okay?
Yeah. Well, the issue that we have now, our current president and legislation, they've adopted a European health care plan.
Yeah.
You know, Obamacare.
Okay.
So they have a European plan for our firearms too.
Yeah.
They'd like you to have a shotgun, but keep it at the skeet range, like a gym membership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what they'd like to do is adopt a European plan where you keep your handgun at the handgun range, you keep your shotgun at the shotgun
Yeah.
range.
And
So there's no reason for you to have a gun at your
Yeah,
home.
they're gonna say, well, you can own a gun, but you got to keep it locked up at the gun range. Yeah, and that's the ultimate goal, and that's what we don't realize. And I didn't realize it either until I started looking into this. So go ahead.
Yeah. And so now we're at the point now where we have some options.
Okay.
You can create an NFA firearms trust,
Okay.
you know, which is by definition is a living trust. And a lot of people don't realize, well, I don't need a family trust. It's not for estate planning. Well, by definition, it's called a living trust or a family trust because it's applicable to those trust laws. But it's specifically a standalone trust for your guns. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, what is a living trust. I've heard that term and they get it confused with living will or whatever.
Right.
A living trust comes from the Catholic Church. 1500, Susie Ormond, you know, not 1500 of course, but she says a trust is a must. Well, what is it? Well, in 1500, the King of England would appoint soldiers to become knights to get 125,000 acres, some horses and some cows. Everything's great. But what they don't realize is the king took it back at their death, either illness or sickness or got killed in battle. So if a handful of knights in 1500 went to the Catholic Church and said, hey, we hold our stuff for our family. And they said, sure, we'll hold it in trust for you. When this country was formed, say 240 years ago, a guy named Patrick Henry, give me freedom or give me death, Patrick Henry, brought with him from England the first funded revocable living trust. And that's where the document comes from.
Okay.
It's from Patrick Henry. Everybody goes, well, it must be new. It must be new. It's something that the criminals are trying to do to sidestep the law. Or Obama calls NFA people dangerous and NFA gun items dangerous and they're the most dangerous people. Well, if they're the most accurate shooters, then yeah, we're probably dangerous. But what he's referring to is we're trying to loophole or shortcut the law, and we're not. It's just you have the right to establish a trust, and you can establish a trust for your home and for everything else. People are familiar with that. And basically, the trust, I refer to it as something as simple as a bucket. And this right here.
All right.
This right here, if you had a normal living trust, your home would go into it, your checking account, your savings account, your CDs, and your life insurance would go into it.
So what he did, okay, this is a cup, and he's drawn, everything will go in that cup.
Yeah,
Okay,
and which is a living
that's the
trust.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's some things you keep out of the trust too.
Okay.
Like right here, you have automobile. Well, it makes sense you wouldn't put your automobile in a trust. It's possible you could have a car accident. As a result of the accident, you get a judgment against you. So there's things you'd keep out of the trust. Well, the gun trust works the exact same way. The only difference is, the only thing we're talking about is guns, okay? So originally, the only items that would go in here in 1934 would be machine gun.
Okay.
Or later on in 1968, they called them Title II weapons.
Yeah.
So if it was for concealment or if it was a muffler or suppressor, you know what some people call a silencer,
Right.
those items alone would go in there. Well, now from an estate planning point, people are putting their gun safes in the NFA Firearms Trust and all the guns they plan to pass to their family. So now the thinking is, well, use a NFA Firearms Trust for an estate planning tool, which is what it is designed to do. You put the gun safe in there, anything that you want to pass along to your children would be inside the gun safe.
Inside a gun safe.
Would be inside the NFA Firearms Trust.
And by law, by the trust law, it would be passed down to the next generation.
Right, and people ask all the time, well, how long will the living trust last? How long will the NFA Firearms Trust last? Well, they last for 99 years.
Okay.
So if you establish a gun trust or NFA Firearms Trust, the assets put into that trust will live for 99 years. Now, we're not going to live for 99 years. So you'd appoint yourself as a trust, or the creator of the trust, you'd appoint a trustee. Well, Winston, you would appoint you as the trustee for your trust. In the event something happened to you, you were unable or unwilling to do something, you would appoint a successor trustee. And you could do that through perpetuity for 99 years. Not that in 99 years, we're going to need another conversation.
Yeah.
You know, but at least it would allow you to control, protect, and distribute your firearms assets, you know, to family members or other shooters without government interference.
Without any kind of government interference on that.
Right. And what happens to us, we talk about this, in July 2nd, on or near, is when this 2015 legislation comes to pass.
Of this year, July 2nd of this year.
Yeah. And we talk about that, and it's called this is the ATF ruling. And what happened is, President Obama had Loretta Lynch come in and sign, the Attorney General, sign this thing to law on January the 4th of 2016. So people were certainly concerned about it, and it wasn't really advertised what they did, but just like Obamacare, something they just do it.
Okay.
So it is a law now, and it's going to go into effect on or near July 2nd, 2016. But there's a few questions here. If I have a firearms trust and my grandfather in, yes, the actual ruling is it's not retroactive.
Okay.
So anything that, if you establish a trust before July 2nd, 2016, we don't know the exact date yet. They're still trying to determine that. But basically, we have 180 days from January the 4th.
Okay.
So the assets placed into that trust are not retroactive. So any future legislation or future gun laws would not be retroactive. And that's why I'm on the show today.
Okay.
Rick Corley saw me, said, hey, James, I wish you'd
time is of the essence. If we're talking about July 2nd, so.
Well, they should consider this.
Yeah.
This is a way of owning the firearms where they take everything that's firearm related, put it into their gun safe, put it into the NFA Firearms Trust, and for 99 years. And what's interesting about it, they actually give their guns away to the trust. Now, they wear a different hat, of course. You're Winston the individual, now you're Winston the trustor of your trust. You're going to become Winston the trustee. So you control the assets as a trustee. So you have that power to buy, sell, rent, or lease, but you don't own the guns anymore.
Okay.
And that's where the trust law comes into effect.
But it's
And
being
then you're
protected.
yes.
That's the bottom line, being protected.
Right.
All right. Well, James, how do people get, what do they do now at this point in time if they're interested in this? Do they just give you a call for more information, or what's?
Well, that's one way. I tell everybody to trust who they already trust.
Okay.
In other words, you have a fishing store, you have a hunting store,
Yeah.
you have a group of guys you work with, or a group of guys. Go there first, to find out, how did you get yours, where do you get yours, get more information. Most of the firearms dealers in today's environment have an NFA Firearms Trust or someone that can talk to you about your options of firearms
So they're a
trust.
local gun store and whatever they deal with.
Exactly.
They
Local gun
okay.
store probably have something like this called a sample documents.
Okay.
And they'd actually have a sample trust you can sit down and go through your
Okay. We've got to wrap it up. I appreciate you getting up and bringing
appreciate you.
driving all the way over here and giving us all that good information.
Thank you.
Really good stuff. Folks, thank you all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. You do something good for your fellow man today, and check this out. You have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.